Now, trust me, I know what you're thinking. Niran, everyone and their nan has done a video on FIFA 20 career mode news already. And I hear that information. But today, I'm going to be bringing you a comprehensive guide to everything you need to know about FIFA 20 career mode. All the info that we know so far and everything that I think is going to contribute to whether this game mode is actually really good and is genuinely all the changes we needed for career mode, or whether we're all just getting a little bit too gassed and hyped because finally we've got something new coming to this game mode. Everything that's going to be important to make this game mode enjoyable is going to be flying in your direction in this video. Now, if you go on to enjoy it, slap a like on the video, subscribe if you are new to the channel, but it's time to get into the action. And first of all, as you are, I'm sure, well aware, on the 7th of August, I believe it was, EA dropped a pitch notes for career mode, which basically underlined every change they had planned and that they had implemented going forward from FIFA 19 into FIFA 20, including quite a few big changes and also some like glitch changes as well, or fixes they made from FIFA 19 career mode that used to annoy us, and like little small things as well. So this pitch notes basically had everything. It wasn't just a, here's the big thing that we've changed for career mode and then we'll announce everything else later down the line. This was pretty much everything that I think they are willing to announce going forward. Now, we'll run down it in what I think is order of most importance. And first of all, dynamic player potential is a humongous one. Like, this is massive, all right? The fact that you now have potentials that can change in essence based on performance, as well as a number of other factors for your young players, for your older players, for your players in their prime, is massive. For those that are unaware, you used to have fixed potentials on career mode up until obviously the most recent version, FIFA 19, where any player would have a set number they would 1000% reach no matter what they did in your career mode save. So whether you played them regularly or not, or whether you let them fester in your reserves for the entirety of their career, they would reach that potential no matter what. That is gone, but crucially, only for your team. In the actual pitch notes, it says players within your own squad will now have a dynamic potential. What I gather from that is that you won't then have dynamic potentials for other players in other leagues, in other teams, etc. So for example, say you're playing in England, you're playing in the Premier League with, I don't know, Bournemouth, and you've scouted a player who plays for, I don't know, Schalke in the Bundesliga. If you're seeing that they've got a really good record in front of goal in the Champions League, and that's the reason maybe why you want to bring that player in, they're not going to have a dynamic potential. Their potential isn't going to have changed because of the amount of times they've scored in the Champions League, or obviously back in their native league in the Bundesliga. It is only players in your team that are affected by this. If you were to sign that Schalke player, he would then have a dynamic potential, but what he did for the German team going beforehand wouldn't have boosted his potential before you signed him, if that makes sense. Now, I won't lie, dynamic player potential is humongous. It is huge. That we've been asking for that for so long. Potentials based on performance, the amount of game time a player gets, the ratings as well. That is huge. You know, a player doing well on the pitch and getting a higher potential going into the next season because of it is something we've been asking for a long time. It is a bit of a shame, though, I cannot lie, that you can't then have dynamic potentials for players outside of your league as well. Mbappe, say, is going to still have a fixed potential for if he plays at Paris Saint-Germain for his whole career. He will still have a fixed potential of, say, 95 if you don't sign him. Whatever career mode save you do, he's still going to be 95 unless you buy him. It makes me sound ungrateful because it seems like I'm complaining about it, and I'm not, honestly, because it's going to make youth academies so much more rewarding, so much more difficult to manage as well, because you're going to have to give those players game time, or it's going to emphasize the use of loan deals as well. But just think how cool it could have been if you had dynamic player potentials across all leagues and stuff. And I realize why they can't do that, because a lot of the other leagues, you don't even see the ratings. Well, all the other leagues, you don't see the ratings, performances, goals, statistics, all that stuff. There's no gauge for how Kylian Mbappe could do in Ligue 1, because even the game doesn't really know how well he did in Ligue 1 across the course of the season. It doesn't track stats in other leagues. Now, going into more details of how this will work for your own team, if a young player gets a lot of game time, gets a lot of goals, has a really good average rating across the course of a season, going into the next season, so say season 2, his potential will get a boost based on how good good he was. But equally, it's not just something for young players. It actually affects old players or aging players as well. So you've got someone who's in the prime of their career, but at the age of 33, they're week in, week out performing, playing, and doing absolute bits for you. Their decline is going to be stunted. They're not going to go down as quickly as you would expect maybe another 33-year-old player to. They're going to keep their actual sort of prime stats for a lot longer, or at least decrease a lot slower. It does, in my opinion, rely on a very solid rating system, which EA and FIFA has not always been known for, but hopefully across the course of a season, it would average out so that you know who's had a good season, who's had a bad season, etc. Overall, though, dynamic player potential's a massive step in the right direction. This is big, and I love it. Now, I've ranted about dynamic player potential a lot. Overall, it's a very good thing, but it's not the only big thing changing for career mode. We now have manager customization, something we've been crying out for since managers were implemented into career mode a few years ago. You can now create your own manager. They can be male, female, you can choose their clothes, you can choose their style as well. There's a lot more customization for your managers going into FIFA 20 career mode. You start off with a row of about 8 or so avatars, and you can then choose on which one you want in terms of style and like clothing and stuff. You might want someone with a tracksuit, you might want someone with a jump around their shoulders. Either or, you can choose someone, and then from there you can actually edit their facial features like complexion, their mouth, eyes, eyebrows, nose, jaw, chin, hair, facial hair, pretty much the entire lot. You can do pretty much anything and make someone completely unique now. You can also do stuff like change accessories and choose their outfit, as I mentioned, from the start of the customization process even, which is a really nice touch. Something that definitely should have been done a long time ago, but I won't complain. I can definitely tell the likes of Corey, Zaro, the community managers have been able to relay our feedback as a community, not just like game changers, but anyone who plays career mode, they've been able to relay that feedback onto the career mode developers, because all these changes, even just the bugs that have been fixed for FIFA 20 career mode, are definitely things that I've heard talked about, that I've known we've talked about as game changers, for example, with those community managers. So it's nice to see stuff like that being implemented, and it shows really that EA are actually listening to us with career mode now. Press conferences have had a complete revamp. Finally, that completely useless press square or press X if you're on Xbox to praise a random player and then see it do absolutely nothing has been removed. We've actually got real press conferences, both pre-match and post-match. It's only some games though, so I think it'll be your most important ones naturally, your derby games, your big cup finals, etc. It's very similar to how the journey was when you were answering questions in that. You get certain answers which then affect certain players in certain ways. You can praise, motivate, criticize, sympathize, or answer calmly as well in terms of answer style. And then your answers then affect player morale, which has had a complete revamp as well. It's not storyline based, it is literally based on how you answer those questions as to what players get affected by what you say, and therefore the implications of that. And player morale, as I said, has a complete new system now. And again, this is huge. This is another fundamental thing. Like, dynamic player potential is a fundamental fixture within career mode, and the morale system is that as well, because it affects attributes. It affects so much to do with a player's happiness and how they actually perform within the career mode save. So morale now is very complex, actually. It's based on a number of different things. Playtime, wage demands, performances out on the pitch, what you say in press conferences, and also what you say in conversation with them as well, which I'll get on to. You can now finally respond to players and their concerns when they come to you about, say, you know, they're not playing enough, or they're not playing in a certain game, someone less experienced is playing. You can say to them, go away. You can say to them, oh, don't worry, you know, you're going to be getting more game time in the second half of the season, and then if you answer well, their morale will go up, they'll be very happy, they'll perform better out on the pitch. If they respond badly to what you say, they're going to decline in attributes, like actually attributes. You'll see it on their attributes page that they'll go down. They won't perform as well in Sims out on the pitch for about 1 to 2 weeks based on what you say in press conferences or in conversation. When it comes to other things, that bad morale can last even longer. They have a bar that will actually indicate how much they go up or down in attributes based on how happy they are. They can either be very unhappy, or content, and it can also be happy and very happy as well, which determine then along that bar how much they go down or up in attributes. Say someone is very unhappy, they'll go down -8 on certain attributes that are very fundamental for their position. So for example, a striker who's very unhappy, very unconfident in their ability, they might go down in -8 on finishing, on attack position, on composure, on long shots, etc. I'll add screenshots as well in the background of press conferences, how you answer questions and how that affects both the player morale of the player you may be talking about, and also team morale generally as well, which makes the whole team a little bit more cohesive when you're using it in game. Massively happy with this one. Like, dynamic player potential was the biggest one to talk about, but I actually think the morale system will have the biggest impact on the actual career mode, because it not only affects attributes, but it affects, seriously how players want to spend their time in your career mode save. If someone is genuinely unhappy and starts playing badly, you're going to have to get them off the books. It's not a situation of, player's very unhappy, the board are like, you can do what you want, and then you decide to keep them. You might have to actually sell someone because they just start being terrible. There are also some smaller things on top of those larger sort of topics that I talked about. As I mentioned, this is a comprehensive look at everything you need to know for FIFA 20 career mode, so I'm going to go through that stuff as well. News sections are the first thing. They're now relevant to the games you play with screenshots. We've got an example here of Vinicius Jr. scoring the winning goal in a game, and it actually now comes up on the news section rather than just the result and then a generic kind of bland sort of write-up to sort of describe what happened that you basically see 1 in 2 times on your news section. Now it'll be quite unique because it'll have the player who scored the goal, the player who got man of the match, and then it'll also have a screen grab from them scoring said goal. The main menu now matches the competition you are in, so if you're playing in the Premier League, you'll have your own unique Premier League sort of background and stuff. There's also those for the Champions League and the Europa League, like there was on FIFA 19. But on top of the European competitions, there is the Premier League, as I mentioned before, the Bundesliga, Ligue 1 in France, La Liga in Spain, and also the MLS, but crucially there, not Serie A. Obviously, we already know, licensing-wise, they've lost quite a lot. Maybe hints at a couple of other things that EA might be losing when it comes to Italian licensing. International management can now be disabled. This was actually, although a small thing, quite a big thing that we all wanted to have removed. Certainly as game changers, when we talk about small things that we wanted to see out of the game, I think international management was always one of those things. Not out completely, people do enjoy it, but personally, the barrage of emails that I get that I just simply don't care about when it comes to international management is unreal. But now you have the choice. You can either leave it on if you do want to be an international manager, or you can switch it off. Youth player stats and growth is now a lot more realistic. Obviously, we have dynamic player potential, which will take over in certain instances, but we've now got higher composure stats, for example, weight and height sort of ratios that make a lot more sense, and I think attributes that now make more sense given the player's position. So crossing, for example, is now not ridiculously low in wingers. Finishing will now be high in attackers because obviously that's their speciality. And as well as that, for youth players, I assume it'll be regens as well. Ethnicities are now a lot more realistic. A lot of the time in FIFA 19, you have Italian players, Spanish players that would look Asian, and you'd have quite a lot of African players that would end up being white. Obviously, in South Africa and Namibia and certain places, there is quite a large white community, but not in Nigeria. Do you know what I mean? Or Ghana, for example, and it was happening in places like that. Senegal, actually, was one of the worst. That has now been removed, that has been fixed, and hopefully you should have some more realistic player faces. We're now back to 8 save slots as well, like we had in FIFA 18. We went down to 4 for FIFA 19 career mode, but thankfully that has now been doubled up once again. There's new locations for negotiations with players. You can see one here on the screen where it's more in a massive apartment with quite a nice background, but instead of it always being in the manager's office, there are now other locations to have negotiations. AI teams should now field stronger teams more regularly. It was a big issue on FIFA 19, FIFA 18, FIFA 17 for a long time, to be honest with you, where certain big teams would underestimate you, even if you were like Everton, for example, which would obviously not happen in real life, and play a second string side and therefore make it easier. That algorithm should now be removed. That should be fixed. Some fixture congestion issues have been fixed as well. I don't know whether it'll be possible to get rid of all fixture congestion, but I think certain things like European games on a Thursday and then a Premier League game on a Saturday have been fixed, and you'll now have a Premier League game on a Sunday or a Monday. Wage budgets have also been made significantly larger, and finally, defender market values are now more realistic. Obviously, there's been quite a big inflation of transfer values across the world, seemingly, during the course of this transfer window alone. So I don't know whether that'll be reflected as well come the full release of the game. We'll have to wait and see. I imagine maybe that's why wage budgets have been increased so much. But that, I feel, is a comprehensive guide to everything you need to know for FIFA 20 career mode. In my opinion, there are certain things that seem humongous right now that you may get to the game and think, oh, I wish this was a little bit more comprehensive. However, overall, the amount of change here to say this is career mode is monumental. I've got to take my hat off. I'm not wearing a hat. I'll take my headphones off to EA for this one because they've done a lot to career mode. They've made some changes that we really wanted. This, as a whole, FIFA 20 career mode will be good, in my opinion. It'll be a strong, really good career mode that we can look back on in 3 years from now and say, yeah, that was solid. As long as the gameplay is really good, I think we'll be able to say we'll enjoy this one because there's so much new stuff. It's an 8 out of 10 from me as far as the career mode devs are concerned. You've done a very, very solid job. Really, really solid job. Should be proud of yourselves on this one, and hopefully the gameplay will be good and we'll end up with a really, really strong career mode for FIFA 20. I have rambled on for so long about FIFA 20 career mode today, but I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, slap a like on it and subscribe if you are new to the channel. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below about the changes for FIFA 20. Are you surprised? I was pleasantly surprised, honestly, with the amount they changed. Let me know if you are as well, and maybe what your favorite new addition for FIFA 20 career mode is going to be. You can also now follow me on social media. It's at @theofficialfng on Twitter and on Insta. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a great day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.